Hello, welcome to American Teacher on YouTube. If you haven't, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And if you have any comments or questions, please leave them in the comment section below. Okay, so a lot of bad news coming out for China. I mentioned that its stocks have lost hundreds of billions of dollars in value this week. Just today, the Philippine president has announced that he is not going to void the Philippines-U.S. Security Pact, which he had threatened to do before. So in an article in U.S. News and World Report dated July 30th, 2021, which is today, it says, the Philippines will keep having large-scale combat exercises with the United States after President Rodrigo Duterte retracted his decision to terminate a key defense pact in a move that may antagonize an increasingly belligerent China. Duterte's decision was announced Friday by Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana in a joint news conference with visiting U.S. counterpart Lloyd Austin in Manila. It was a step back from the Philippine leader's stunning vow early in his term to distance himself from Washington as he tried to rebuild frayed ties with China over years of territorial rifts in the South China Sea. I imagine that there was a lot of pushback within the Philippines itself against his decision to void the U.S. Security Pact, and also that pushback grew as the Chinese maritime militia took over Philippines territory and refused to move. So yeah, that's good to hear. The Philippines will keep its security pact with the U.S., which is a big deal, because it will mean that if there were a war between Taiwan and China, the U.S. could use the Philippines as a staging area. So that's big news. Some other bad news for China. In Nanjing, new virus outbreak, the worst after Wuhan, says China state media. So this is not some outside source. This is actually Chinese state media itself, which means in reality this outbreak must be even worse than they're letting on. A COVID outbreak first discovered in the Chinese city of Nanjing has spread to 5 provinces and Beijing, with state media calling it, quote, the most extensive contagion after Wuhan, end quote. So this appeared in BBC News website 3 hours ago, July 30th, 2021. So it says that all 9.3 million residents in Nanjing will be tested. According to the state media, almost 200 people have been infected since the virus was first detected at Nanjing's airport on July 20th. Okay, so this is according to Chinese state media, which means that this outbreak must be very serious if they are reporting it in their own state media. So bad news for China. China is complaining that that the world is out to get it, or the U.S. is trying to lie about China to the rest of the world and trying to force the rest of the world to be against China. But in reality, China is doing its best to alienate people. I mentioned the Chinese militia, navy that took over Philippine territory, or actually refused to leave Philippine territory, and that received Philippine pushback. Also, they are angry and warning the UK now. Well, what did the UK do? They transited the South China Sea on their way to a military exercise with Japan. So the South China Sea is an international zone. Basically, any ship that wants to can sail through there. But China is now complaining that the UK sailed through there and trying to make it out to be a big challenge to their authority. So just another piece of evidence showing that China is actually pushing people away rather than trying to work with people. They are the bully. They're the ones that are trying to force others to follow their rules. So in this article in BBC News, published 9 hours ago today, July 30th, 2021, China warns UK as carrier strike group approaches. China has warned the UK's carrier strike group, led by the aircraft carrier HMS Queen Elizabeth, not to carry out, quote, improper acts, end quote, as it enters the contested South China Sea. Quote, the People's Liberation Army Navy is at a high state of combat readiness, end quote, says the pro-government Global Times, seen as a mouthpiece for the ruling Chinese Communist Party. China has been closely monitoring the progress eastward of the carrier strike group, which is currently sailing through the South China Sea en route to Japan, while accusing Britain of, quote, still living in its colonial days, end quote. Very, very ironic statement from the CCP. China is currently acting like a colonial power, whereas BBC gave up its colonial powers decades ago. Okay, getting back to the article, the Royal Navy has been carrying out exercises with the Singaporean Navy, and Britain's Defense Secretary Ben Wallace has made no secret of the intention to conduct a so-called, quote, freedom of navigation, end quote, exercise through the South China Sea. Contrary to a 2016 international court ruling, China claims that much of the South China Sea is its own and has been busy building artificial reefs and runways, some of them close to territorial waters of neighboring states. Both U.S. and Royal Navy warships have recently challenged China's claims to sovereignty in the South China Sea by purposefully sailing through it. But according to the UK, it was simply traveling to a joint military exercise in Japan. So China is just saber rattling right now. They know if they harmed a whisker on the HMS Queen Elizabeth, there would be heck to pay. They don't dare touch those ships, especially when they're in international waters. All right, in the meantime, China is still cracking down on free speech in Hong Kong. In the story I talked about yesterday, the young man Tong Yin Kit was sentenced to 9 years in prison for his protest against the national security law, which was forced on Hong Kong by the Chinese Communist Party. So he has been sentenced to 9 years. In another related story, there's been a police investigation sparked by booing. In BBC News, dated today, July 30th, 2021, Hong Kong police are investigating an incident where a crowd watching the Olympics booed China's national anthem. Hundreds gathered at a shopping mall on Monday to watch a broadcast and cheer on Hong Kong fencer Edward Chung, who won gold in the men's individual foil. When the Chinese national anthem was played, some in the crowd began jeering, while others shouted, "We are Hong Kong." Under China's national security law, which it forced on Hong Kong, it is illegal to insult the national anthem. Anyone found guilty of flouting the national anthem law could be jailed up to 3 years and fined 50,000 Hong Kong dollars or 6,400 US dollars. Reports also said that the British colonial flag was flown, and some had chanted protest slogans which could possibly violate the national security law, which forbids anything that incites secession and could result in life in jail. So police sources told local media that they are collecting and examining footage from the mall's security cameras. So the Chinese government is trying to force patriotism on Hong Kong citizens. The reason the citizens booed is because they consider themselves Hong Kong. They consider themselves as a separate entity. It would be tantamount to someone playing the British national anthem when the U.S. wins in an Olympic sport. So yes, China has brutally cracked down on freedom of speech and freedom of expression in Hong Kong. They are also cracking down on businesses that want to do transactions and business overseas. They are slowly but surely taking away even internet freedom in Hong Kong. So China is its own worst enemy. The Chinese government is China's own worst enemy. They are alienating themselves from the rest of the world. Another piece of news that shows this: China is building more nuclear silos. This was an article in AP News. Actually, I've seen this article pop up a few times lately. This is just an update. So this was posted today, July 30th, 2021, in AP News. It says the U.S. military is warning about what analysts had described as a major expansion of China's nuclear missile silo fields at a time of heightened tension between Beijing and Washington. Researchers at the Federation of American Scientists estimate that China has approximately 250 underground missile silos under construction after they used satellite imagery to identify a new field being built in western China. U.S. Strategic Command tweeted a link Wednesday to a story in the New York Times on the Federation's findings, which were published this week. Quote, "The public has discovered what we have been saying all along about the growing threat the world faces and the veil of secrecy that surrounds it," end quote, said the Strategic Command, which oversees America's nuclear arsenal. The field in the Xinjiang region is the second one reported this summer. In June, researchers at the James Martin Center for Non-Proliferation Studies in California identified another field under construction in neighboring Gansu province. China has so far not commented on the reports. Asked about the latest one, the foreign ministry said it was not aware of the situation. It would not be out of character for them to be lying. I'm sure they do know about it. So, China is alienating itself from the world. China is pushing the world further away. It's not the Chinese people themselves, it's the Chinese Communist Party led by Xi Jinping. And it seems he is focused on installing China as the #1 power in the world. Now, if China was a democracy, many people wouldn't have as much problem with this. But as the government of China has shown, they do not allow any dissent. They do not allow even constructive criticism. And they make their citizens disappear, even their billionaires, for speaking out against the government, or maybe even just trying to give positive criticism. And this is what the world does not need. And this is what the world will fight against. We will not fall under the control of the Chinese Communist Party. It's not just the U.S. that feels this way. Even countries that do business with China, that have borrowed tons of money from China, their people do not want to be under the control of the Chinese government. So, our dollars, we've bought products from China over the past decades, and our companies have been forced into partnerships with companies that enrich the Communist Party of China. So you could say that our dollars have helped sponsor the Chinese Communist Party, and it's time for that to end. And we need to divorce ourselves financially from China, and it is doable. There are lots of emerging economies in Southeast Asia, India, Vietnam, for instance, that we can outsource our production to, that are less dangerous than the Communist Party. And I think our government's policy needs to reflect that. Instead of doing it all at one time, we need to, take it step by step. But we need to get it done as soon as possible. Because we do not need to finance an authoritarian regime that commits genocide on its own people. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below. Thank you for watching American Teacher. Bye-bye.